Tea. I want to talk briefly about a friend and colleague who was a bit of a father figure to me in my early career at Crewe. His name is Alan Scarborough. Sadly, I don't have any pictures of him. An old hand driver, a lovely man. He was also a mason. Showed me his lodge credentials. Now, Alan and I would regularly travel past to Carlisle or Moss End to work trains back to Crewe. And at some stage in the journey, he would go to the buffet, not to buy tea, but to get hot water for his tea can. Now, you had to watch some of these old hand drivers. Even if they were your friend, they'd still play jokes on you. Alan, no exception. He would go and get hot water from the buffet car, come back and make tea. Not any tea. He'd make loose tea. And he'd put it in his can without you knowing when you weren't watching. So for the unwary, you'd take a big sip of your tea and get a mouthful of grouts, which was not pleasant. There you go. Once bitten and all that sort of thing. You learnt when Alan made tea, let the grouts settle before you start drinking. I suppose, why is that relevant? Well, recently somebody, my sister-in-law Alison, hello Alison, bought me an enamel tea can. So I thought the best way to explain to her how it's used and what it was used for was to do one of these little videos. And I've got to redo some of the audio on this, so it might dip in and out of... Anyway, this is my desk, this is the view out of the front, and on all of the engines that I've ever worked on, they've always had a hot plate cooker somewhere in the cab, and this is it. On this locomotive, it's a hot plate.
So we put it on and we switch the switch to as high as it will go, because it will probably take some time to boil. Rest my phone camera precariously and we'll top it up with some water and we'll see how long it takes to boil. Well, hopefully you can see that it's actually boiling. Look at that. Boiling water. Yep, it works. I had to move engines onto 254. 219 was just taking too long. It's taken about 20 minutes to boil on here, which is not too bad. If I can balance my phone properly, I'll be able to use both hands. Pour myself a cup of tea. Go. Done.
So that was the hot plate. Now, on some of the other engines, there is what is known as, or what I call, the cooker. These are probably a little more common than the hot plate version, and probably more user-friendly as well, because this one has straps that hook on and grip your tea can so it doesn't rattle and shake and bounce all over the place. But these days, with the advances of technology, it's a lot easier for me to make a cup of tea. Rather than messing about with all this sort of paraphernalia, it's a lot easier for me to get out of my chair, walk the short distance through the train, and flick on the switch.